Good morning, everyone. This is Daniele Capezzone, a view from Italy, the Watch Report from the Utopia Studios in Rome. Have a nice Friday. It takes great braveness and courage to demonstrate against a violent regime and to put your life at risk against a regime. So our thoughts and hearts are with the Cuban guys who are demonstrating for their liberty. Let me make a couple of remarks about this demonstration in Cuba. The first one, here in Italy, every year we proudly celebrate the 25th of April, which is the date which marks the fall of the fascist dictatorship and the date which paved the way for the establishment of a democratic republic. If we celebrate that date, and of course we are right to do so, why shouldn't we wish a sort of 25th of April for the oppressed people all over the world, a 25th of April for the Chinese, for the Vietnamese, for the Cubans? Watch out, it's not a question of exporting values or exporting democracy. We know very well that you cannot drop democracy out of a plane from 10,000 feet, okay? But it is a question of removing obstacles which prevent people from choosing what has always been chosen by men and women when they have been free to do so. That's the key point, unless, but this would be a bit racist, unless we think that only we in the West deserve freedom and democracy and other people all over the world must be deprived of this opportunity to enjoy freedom, democracy, political and personal liberty. My second remark is also an advice. After watching this conversation, View from Italy, please watch out and watch on YouTube or Google an old conversation between Bill Kristol, the former editor of the Weekly Standard, a magazine which has now shut down, and Garry Kasparov, who was the former Russian chess champion and is a freedom fighter. And Kasparov explains to Kristol a couple of things. The first one is a personal story, which is represented by the story of the first match, the final game of a world chess championship between himself, Kasparov as a young player, and the Soviet and world champion Anatoly Karpov. And Karpov was perceived as a loyal Soviet soldier. It was 1984. He had defeated several Western players, and according to the regime in Moscow, he was the living proof of the superiority of the Russian intellect against the corrupt Western mind and souls. While Kasparov, the young challenger, was perceived as a dangerous libertarian guy. The match was a sort of thrilling. At first, Kasparov was losing badly. Then there was a draw and the game was suspended. And Kasparov explained, we were both exhausted, but there were two different kinds of exhaustion. Karpov was exhausted as the champion who was losing his crown. I was exhausted, but I was the young guy who was reaching the crown. But then there is the political memory, which lets us think of Cuba and of any other dictatorship. When Kasparov explains what happened after the match, he came out as a freedom fighter. He explained that also Eastern European people should enjoy liberty. He explained that the Berlin Wall was to fall, and so on. Of course, this created a lot of debate against Kasparov in his country. And Kasparov, in this conversation with Kristol, explains the mindset, the mentality of every kind of regime. The communist leaders, when faced with a communist failure, never admit this kind of failure. They use two arguments. The first one, they say, this wasn't real communism. There is also a true communism which should be, according to them, safe from potential failures. And their second argument, of course, false argument, is communism was a good idea, but unfortunately there was a bad implementation. No. Kasparov disagrees with that, and of course he is right to disagree, and he says that communism and any kind of dictatorship of left-wing or right-wing dictatorship are never good ideas. The idea of having a Politburo which decides over people's life, the idea of a public ownership of the means of production are not good ideas in themselves. This is what we have to commit to memory and have in mind also when we are talking about Cuba, La Habana, and the revolts of the brave Cuban people. Thank you once again, and see you next Friday here in A View from Italy.